Good morning.
Good morning.
What an introduction I got today. Yes, beautiful. Thank you. I have to chuckle because one thing we didn't talk about is every Wednesday night I do a Zoom meditation. And I have some folks that join me from in Alaska and some folks from Montana, and they're kind of getting to know each other now. And so it's 5:30 your time and 7:30 Montana time, and I can't get it much later because some of my ladies probably don't stay up after 8:30 that come to the thing. So we've had an opportunity to kind of get to know each other. And so last week, our meditation, interestingly enough, was about self-worth, and it was about releasing our negative thoughts about our past experiences, our past decisions, our past concerns, our past disruptions. I know I've had a few I've needed to release some things about. And it's about acknowledging our vulnerabilities and accepting ourselves just the way we are and being authentic with others. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I spent a lot of my life trying to be what everybody else thought I should be, instead of being the truth of who I am. And that's a very difficult position to maintain for an extended period of time. I told them a couple weeks ago when I was doing my service, that's why I've been married more than once, because you can only do it for so long, and then the truth of you comes out. So, but when we do let the truth of us come out, we open ourselves up to all kinds of good stuff. We open ourselves up to love and to joy and to happiness, as well as to sadness and heartbreak and all of the things in between. It makes us vulnerable. And this month we're talking about vulnerability. But vulnerability improves our health, our mental health and our emotional health. And what I've noticed is a lot easier to talk about than it is to really do it, to be that authentic self, because some people might not like you, and I don't know about the rest of you, but I always wanted everybody to like me, and it was very uncomfortable when I knew, and I do have some, that they didn't. So we get to have the opportunity to open ourselves to that experience and to allow ourselves to be able to live and grow and to become the truth of who we are. When we do accept our past, and this was what our meditation was about, we acknowledge our past, we accept our past, we bless our past, and we let it go. We don't have to hang on to it. And we get to embrace our greater yet to be. That's an amazing thing. We get to write our future the way we want it to be, instead of trying to conform to how everybody else thinks we should be. I don't know about all you all, but I do know that for me, it's a lot easier to talk about it and talk about those ideas than it is for me to actually execute them. My advice is don't give up, just keep moving forward, Bless your past and let it go. And look at yourself with gentle eyes. We're our own worst critics. So look at yourself with gentle eyes and make friends with all the parts of yourself, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of them. Make friends with all of them. The parts that you're willing for other people to see and the parts that you hide under the bed or in the closet because you don't want people to know about them. Because it's all of those parts that make up the truth of who we are. What I've come to understand from my experiences is they have prepared me for this moment right now. And without those experiences, I would not be having this experience. So I love my past, I bless my past, and I release my past. And it's the knowledge of my whole self and your whole self that allows you to become the truth of who you are. Because remember, each one of us is an individualized expression of the divine, whole, perfect, and complete. And there is no one else quite like you, ever. Ever. And those past experiences have refined you and honed you to be the person that you are. The wonderful expression that we're seeing here today. According to Brene Brown, and this is a quote, we associate vulnerability with emotions we want to avoid, such as fear, shame, and uncertainty. Yet too often, we lose sight of the fact that vulnerability is also the birthplace of joy, creativity, authenticity, and love. When we dare to drop the armor that protects us from feeling vulnerable, we open ourselves to experiences that bring purpose and meaning to our lives, unquote. So what she's saying is being vulnerable allows us to build empathy. The other night I was talking to a friend and we were sharing some of our past experiences. And it occurred to me, I'm not a lot like I was way back then, but those experiences are actually what led me here. And I'm going to share one with you. Some of the people I met back then allowed me to see beyond the public conception of those people to what was the truth of them and me. When I moved from Montana to Seattle, I was pretty much, a country bumpkin. I was very young and very naive, and my marriage hadn't worked out, and so I moved to Seattle. I was going to work, and I'd never really been on my own. So I moved from a very small town, and it was challenging for me even just to find my way to work and back. It got to the point, if I could tell where the Space Needle was, I could find my way home. But it took me a while because I was pretty challenged by the crowds of people. So I moved into this place out by the airport, and one day my 5-year-old son was riding his bicycle in the neighborhood, and back then it was safe to do that. You could ride around the neighborhood. Well, he wrecked his bike. And pretty soon here came these bikers in their colors, sporting their colors, and they're carrying him down my driveway. And I'm like, those people, you've heard about those people. And my conception of them so changed. What I learned was that they were kind and they were compassionate, and they're carrying this poor little kid, and we all learned from it. My son wasn't really hurt. He was shaken up a little, but my conception of people changed so much in that moment. It was a defining moment for me because I learned I needed to judge for myself what people were like and not accept that those people idea. And that's a benefit. One of the fellows, his name was Mike. Later he was hit by a car and killed on the freeway. And when I went, this is just part of this story. And when I went to his memorial service, I was telling Dawn earlier today, his identical twin brother was the Baptist minister who performed that memorial. And that was quite unnerving for me. But what I did learn, I learned that we cannot judge people by what they look like or who they hang out with or what we've been told or what we think, because that fear, that uncertainty, that skepticism builds walls, and you would never get to know them, and you would never get to allow them to express their truth. And the truth is, they wanted the same thing that everybody else wants. They wanted compassion, they wanted love, they wanted acceptance. And I had to look beyond my limited vision to see that. So when we build up those walls, not only do we keep others out, we keep ourselves from expressing the wholeness of who we are. We keep ourselves from expressing. Of course, most of us have had some past experiences that might not have been very pleasant. I know I have. And it can be very uncomfortable to open up about our past. At least for me, it can be. But I needed those lessons. I needed every one of them. And there were a lot. But I needed them to help me grow to who I am today. I needed them to learn to accept other people where they were. You know, we set up expectations about how people should treat us, and then we don't tell them what they are. We don't tell them, and then they don't live up to them, and we're upset, and we didn't tell them at all what it was that we expected from them. So when we accept the truth of who we are, we allow ourselves to live out loud. To live out loud. It brings us into our wholeness. Our fullness blossoms. We become the truth of our being, and we can live in possibility instead of in blame and anger. We can live in possibility, and all of these experiences then rush in to color our lives. We have some fantastic experiences. We can live in possibility, and guess what you can do? You can issue an eviction notice to that blame and shame game. You can just issue that eviction notice. We don't need you anymore. Just go. Go. I'm not going to blame anyone. I'm going to get rid of the guilt. I'm going to get rid of the anger, and I am going to be my own best friend. Yeah, we aren't usually, are we? I think mostly we're very critical of ourselves, and we forget we are enough, warts and all. We are enough. We've always been enough. We just haven't recognized it. I am enough. Ernest Holmes says, in Science of Mind, always there is an inner quiet, persistent confidence, a non-resistant but complete acceptance, an inward flowing with the stream of life, knowing that it carries me safely and surely to my destination and to the accomplishment of every good purpose. To the accomplishment of every good purpose. Brene Brown tells us that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It's a way to measure our courage. Being vulnerable. She says you can measure how brave you are by how vulnerable you are. How vulnerable you're willing to be. Because vulnerability is the birthplace of joy, creativity, authenticity, and love. It's okay to let your guard down. Well, most of the time. It's okay to be seen as who we truly are. It's okay to accept the truth about ourselves. The truth about it is that vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a strength. And it helps us to find other people who accept us the way we are. You know, when I walk around with this facade, I have people who might like me, but they don't really like me. They like what I'm projecting and not the truth of who I am. So what about being in love? Have you ever been in love? Being in love means you're vulnerable. Because you are never 100% sure that that person is going to love you back. You are never 100% sure that that person is not going to leave you or be untrue to you. You're not 100% sure that that person's not going to up and die on you. You know, we don't have that assurance. And so being in love makes us vulnerable. And all of us, every one of you, are vulnerable to some degree. And it can be scary, and it can be hard, and it can be so worth it. C.S. Lewis wrote, "To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything, and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. If you want it to keep it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it carefully round with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or the coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, and irredeemable." Unquote. So he's telling us that if we are not willing to risk it, we're going to lose it, right? That's what he's telling us, and I'm sure all of us could relate to that. Brene Brown says that people who live in a place of vulnerability are living wholeheartedly. Wholeheartedly. So don't you want to live wholeheartedly? You don't want to numb yourself so as not to feel pain. Because if you're not feeling pain, you're not going to feel joy. If we choose not to feel sorrow, we'll never experience the fullness of happiness and joy. And in her book, she reminds us that we cultivate wholehearted living through empathy, through accountability, and through visionary leadership. We can cultivate it. We can grow it. And so do you have an emotional armor? What's your emotional armor? Some of us use perfectionism as our emotional armor. Others, I don't know about the rest of you, but others numb themselves so they don't feel. So nothing you can say is going to hurt me because, I've numbed myself and I'm not going to feel vulnerable. But being vulnerable allows me to deal with my emotions, whatever they are, as they come up, instead of denying them. I get to live with the truth of me. When we recognize what our armor is, when you recognize what your armor is, then you have an opportunity to change it and to allow yourself to experience the full gamut of emotions. It's kind of like when you're playing poker and you go all in, when you're willing to experience your emotions, you're going all in. So wholehearted living is about engaging in our lives from a place of worthiness. It means cultivating the courage, compassion, and connection to wake up in the morning and think, no matter what gets done and how much I left undone, I am enough. It's going to bed at night and thinking, yes, I am imperfect and vulnerable and sometimes afraid, but that doesn't change the truth that I am brave and worthy of love and belonging. And that is a quote from Brené Brown. Remember, there's a difference between breaking and being broken open. We want to be broken open. We want to be allowing. We want to accept the truth of our being. Being vulnerable can be frightening. It can be frightening because I'm allowing someone in a little closer than I'm comfortable with. But when you let them in, you're also allowing grace to drift in. You get to have both instead of none. For example, when someone dies, we are sad and we're bereft. But at the same time, we get to see how deeply we loved another person and how lucky we were to have had the experience of having them in our lives. Khalil Gibran says, the deeper sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. And there's a book called The Strength in Our Scars by Bianca Sparacino, and she says, you are the only person who gets to decide if you're happy or not. Don't put your happiness into the hands of other people. Do not make it contingent on their acceptance of you or their feelings for you. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if someone likes you or dislikes you. It doesn't matter. She says, it doesn't matter if they don't want to be with you. All that matters, the only thing that matters is if you are happy with the person that you're becoming. Are you happy with the person that you're becoming? All that matters is that you like yourself. All that matters is that you are proud of what you're putting out into the world. You are in charge of your joy. You are in charge of your worth. You get to be your own validation. Don't ever forget that, unquote. It is time for us to quit waiting for someone else to make us whole, because that's just not going to happen. Take all of the love that you've been giving to other people and give it to yourself. Love yourself first. and love yourself that much. You know, we can find, you love your kids, you love your spouse, but oftentimes we neglect ourselves. And so the idea is to take that emotion and that love and surround and support yourself, knowing that truly you are an individualized expression of God and you deserve to be loved and you deserve to love yourself. And with that, I'd like to ask you to please join me in prayer. Sweet, sweet Spirit, Father, Mother God, that whole and holy presence in which we live and breathe and have our being, that divine essence that infills us and surrounds us, God who is light and love and peace and joy, oneness, wholeness, harmony. God who is all there is. And that includes vulnerability. There is absolutely nothing that is outside of God, and I am one with it. And if that's true for me, that is true for all, one with the one. One with health and wholeness and abundance, one with light and love and peace and joy. One with that divine and holy presence that vibrates in every cell and fiber of our being. So as I speak my word today, I speak it knowing truly that we let go of the past, that we embrace the truth of our being, that we move through this day and through this week, loving ourselves wholly and completely, warts and all. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the powerful presence of Spirit in my life this day. I am grateful for the light and the love of God that infills each and every one of us. I am grateful for this community that comes together to worship. I am grateful for the opportunity that we have to share our light with one another. As I release this word now to the perfect working of the perfect law that always and only says yes, please join me in affirming, and so it is.